Yeah.
All right, so I guess I'm doing the honors. Welcome to yet another installment of Breakfast with Mark and Jen.
Let's go.
So it's holiday time.
Yeah.
For some people, holiday time is exciting, it's joyful, it's peaceful, and then for other
Other people,
households, it
yeah,
is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think outside of family, probably the next biggest stressor, or maybe even the first biggest stressor for people, is money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to delve a little bit into marriage and money today and talk about the whole concept of, like, based on who makes more money, what does that mean for a marriage?
Yeah. My first thoughts on it is that number one, money can make or break your marriage.
Yes.
It's that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that big of a deal because at people's core, they're greedy. Well, people are greedy. And just because you love somebody and that's your spouse doesn't mean that they're not greedy. And until people deal with their inner passions, desires, and greed as it relates to money, then they won't really have a successful marriage. Because marriage requires you to be selfless in every area.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to money.
Right.
So the first rule of thumb when it comes to money and marriage is, can you be selfless? And stop thinking about the money that you bring into the house as your money.
Yeah.
And start thinking of it as our money. Because when people are so concerned about their contribution and how that makes them feel, when they're concerned about their contribution and what happens to their piece of the pie, then they're looking at marriage completely wrong as it relates to money.
So, while we're on that subject, then, as a guy, Mark, speaking from a guy's perspective, would you say that the average guy is bothered by a woman who makes more money than him? Or would you say the average guy actually isn't worried about the money you make more than he's concerned about the respect you give him?
The average guy is concerned more about respect than he is money. But that's a loaded question because you're talking about the average guy, right? But the question really is how healthy is that guy internally? How does he measure his value? Does he measure his value based on the money he brings in? Because a lot of guys keep score. That's how we see life. We keep score. So if money is a measurement that actually gives us value and keeps score, tells us whether or not we're successful,
Right.
tells us whether or not we need to do better, then if money is that marker, then that husband is probably not healthy. So then he struggles with whatever contribution his wife brings in. So he'll struggle with his wife bringing in less than him. He'll struggle with his wife bringing in more than him.
Oh, wow.
Because he's using money as the measurement, as
So
the
he'll
marker
struggle with a
of
wife
success.
that brings less.
Yes, because he'll see her as less than.
Really?
Yeah.
This is like mind-opening.
He'll see her as less than, all right, as beneath him.
Oh.
Because he's using money to be the marker.
But then will that same guy be upset
guy,
if she makes more?
That same guy will struggle with the wife making more because he's using money as the measurement,
So then
as the marker.
it goes back to what you're saying then. So then for that guy, in that particular specific instance, the woman shouldn't either dumb herself down or try to make herself what she's not, because he's the one that has to do the work in that particular situation.
He has the problem. Money problems are internal problems, right?
Yeah.
They're stewardship issues. their heart issues, their integrity issues. So if your marriage is struggling financially, struggling with money issues, you have to check what's at the root, what's beneath that. So a guy that struggles with his wife making more than him, it's because he has esteem issues.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
He has internal issues
Right.
that he can't be partnered with somebody that makes more than him.
Wow.
So he sees it as a problem because she's a woman and she makes more than him. But if he has a partnership, a business partner, he will struggle with a business partner because that's a dude, but his partner makes more than him. His issue is he has esteem problems, and anybody in his life that he's connected to that makes more than him, he can't handle that.
Well, I'm going to say something, Mark, that maybe some ladies in 2022 will not appreciate, but I just have to be me. And that statement is, I do hate it, though, when women who happen to make more than their husbands declare that this means they should have more power or say so or decision making in the marriage.
Right.
And I know some ladies are going to be like, well, whose side are you on anyway? Sis, I'm actually on your side. Because I understand, after being married successfully since 2007, that in order for marriage to continue to be healthy and to work, we do have to work as partners. And I remember years ago when we first got married, you were on this panel. You were invited to be on a panel. I'll never forget the title. It was called The Plight of the Black Man.
Right.
And the lady who hosted the event said in the mic publicly in front of everyone, I will never stroke the ego of a man who makes less than me. If you want me to stroke your ego as my husband, you have to make more than me. And I cringed. And as a married woman, I sat there and I looked at her and I was like, yes, I know things happen in God's time, but that comment right there is going to shut down. If there was any guy in the room who was thinking of getting ready to talk to you, you probably just shut it down. Because this was a successful woman who said this. And maybe now there's a guy in the room who says, well, she's just basically telling me she's not going to feed my ego or encourage me if I can't make more than her. And I cringe at that because I say, the Bible never said that a man is worse than an infidel if he doesn't make more than his wife.
Right.
The scripture says a man who doesn't provide for his own house has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So sis, isn't it more important to have a man who loves God, respects you, and provides than it is to have a man that makes more than you, as if our respect for people should come from how much money they make? Because you know what it tells me? If you say, I don't respect my spouse because they don't make a certain amount, I'm nervous to be around you because you're telling me you don't respect janitors. You don't respect waiters and waitresses. You don't respect people who have less than you. You don't respect the homeless. And somebody's probably now like, Jen, where are you going with this? This is going too far. But I'm serious. Because it lets me know that for you, someone's value is based on the amount of money that they can make. And that is unfair.
It is such a shallow measurement.
Yes.
To say that I will value a person's life and their worth based on how much money they make. And that's the problem, is that we have reduced our interactions, our relationships down to this very shallow measurement called money. Because money is just a tool, it's just a resource, but it's not the core value of a person, nor should it be used to express how valuable that person is. What about their true character?
Exactly.
Right? What's worth more than a money? A person's character is worth more. I can get money. I can always get more money. If I have character, if I have integrity, I can always get more money, no matter how much I've been knocked down. If I have the right core values inside of me, then I can always get money, because God is concerned about our love for money. And, you know, going after money as if money is the ultimate thing and not pursuing the true character things.
And I think that's good, because marriages also have to go through seasons. Your husband may make more money than you now, But what about in 5 years from now, if he gets laid off or his business goes under for a season? I'll never forget when we went through our own financial hardship. And there was one year in particular where we got to the end of the year and you said to me, Jen, thank you so much for holding the house down. And I was like, what do you mean? You've been bringing in money as well. You've been earning income. And you were like, yeah, but when I look at the books, the first 6 months of the year, you brought in way more than I did. Do you know, Mark, I never even realized that. I wasn't sitting there counting the dollars and the cents. I knew how much I was bringing in. I knew how much was in our account. But I literally never sat down and started to scrutinize, oh, January through June this year, though, I brought in thousands more than Mark did. Actually, all I thought to myself was, man, we're both killing it. He's killing his graphics. I'm killing my writing. God is giving us an opportunity to dig out of our financial hardship that we've been experiencing a couple of years ago. And I think that's what it boils down to also in marriage, is understanding that money is not only, unlike time where you can get more of it, like you said, but money is seasonal.
Oh, yeah.
So don't, despise your spouse for making less than you.
Right.
Or respect them for making more than you, because the tables can turn.
The tables can easily turn. And it's really about, how do you respect the person that you're married to, regardless of their income? Do you respect them and their position and their place in the house? Because that's not dependent on money.
Right.
That's dependent on that person's position,
right,
and worth in the house. And so that's where the respect comes in. And it doesn't matter whether or not that person is making a lot of money or that person is making a little bit of money. And so each person, each party, the husband and the wife, have to kind of put blinders on when it comes to money, and realize that money is not something to be used in order to get respect, or to be used as a whip, right?
Yeah.
To receive respect or push respect,
Yes,
and control people. And so one of the things I also was thinking about is that as the man, right, we need certain things. So if our wives are making more than us, we don't really have a problem with it if, number one, we're secure.
Right.
And number two, she doesn't use it as a way to augment her voice in the house.
Okay.
So the thing is that money can make people feel taller. It can make people stick out their chest a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then that's when we back up as a husband and say, wait a second. Is it because you're an executive now?
Right.
That you feel like, hey, you need to rule and reign and be an executive in the house?
Oh, wow.
Or can you continue to play your role, which is not subservient, but you have a unique role as the wife in the house? You don't have an executive role in the house. So if you're an executive on your job, you're not an executive in the marriage. And that's the thing, is that people have to really know the difference. If I'm a pastor,
yes,
as my occupation, I don't always need to necessarily be the pastor in the marriage.
Right. That's good.
Say
That's
amen
good.
to that.
Amen.
Because my wife is looking at me sometimes like, can you stop preaching to me?
Right.
Like,
because,
I need you to be my husband, not my pastor.
Right. Because you do happen to be my pastor, but when you were my best friend before you were my pastor, and when you retire from pastoring, you'll still be my best friend. So if you don't know how to take that hat off, it's not going to be a good situation. So I think that is amazing. And I feel like we can do a whole nother talk on gender roles, because it still burns me up how people think that a loving God, by putting an order in the household, was asking women to be subservient, because that's never what he intended.
Right.
If that was the case, he wouldn't have allowed Deborah to be a judge.
Right.
He wouldn't have allowed Esther to be able to approach the king and save her entire nation. He wouldn't have allowed her name is slipping me now, but she built a whole Shira. He wouldn't have allowed her to build cities.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's not saying that women cannot have decision-making capabilities, or that women cannot be leaders in their own right.
Right.
But there is an order.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you misunderstand money and what it should be used for, and when you misunderstand God's purpose for marriage and money, you come away with such a warped view.
Right.
But I do have to ask you this, Mark. It came to me. I know of a couple where I think they probably split their finances more than you and I have chosen to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the husband had to pay a bill. He pays the bill, but uses some of the wife's money. And the wife says, don't forget to pay me back on your next paycheck.
Right.
And that bothered me
Yeah.
because I guess I felt like you guys live under the same roof.
Mm-hmm.
All of your kids, or are both of y'all's, like neither one of them has kids outside of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess,
So it's
what is your
dangerous.
thoughts on, like, how do you think as a guy that might, I know you haven't talked to that guy, but what do you think that might have made him feel like if he's like, hey, I got to pay this bill and I know we split our money, can I borrow money? But then his wife of 100 years is like, and you better pay me back for that bill.
Well, there's a couple things that makes that dangerous, because if you're thinking about your money as in a marriage, if you're thinking about your money as so separate that you don't share it, but you actually have to borrow it, that can be problematic.
Yeah.
Because if it's a true partnership and you're actually keeping score, then how much of a partnership is it really? Because the worst thing you can do in a marriage is keep score. Whether you're talking about money, or you're talking about success, or you're talking about awards, or you're talking about affirmation, if you're trying to keep score, you're going to lose every time, because that's something that will never be equal. So if you are coming together and you're sharing money in a marriage, but yet the way that you're sharing it is like you're keeping score, and if you give your spouse $1, they've got to give you $1 back.
Right.
If you get down to that kind of granular level when it comes to money, and you're keeping score, it's going to be dangerous, because you'll never win that. It'll never be perfectly equal. You'll always feel like you're giving too much or you're losing too much. It'll never feel like it's a perfect 50-50 scenario.
Right.
So what you need to do is build in boundaries and constraints and rules that actually govern your money in the marriage. Every marriage is different. So you can have multiple accounts, one account, separate accounts. She can have her account, and the bills come from her account, the bills come from it. I don't care which way you do it, but you have to keep certain rules in place so that you don't get out of whack, and that you don't start looking at the other person a little bit, side eye and cross eye, like, hey, how come all the money is coming out of my account and it's not coming out of your account? Be careful of things like that, because God put it together where you would become one. And when God says that the husband and the wife will become one, it's not just one in body, it's not just one in spirit, it's one in money.
That's good.
And so if you can do that, you'll be better off. So I think it makes either spouse feel a way when it seems like their partner is keeping score. And you're like, hey, I lent you, $500 the other day. Where's that money? So
that's good.
I think that becomes problematic. But I do feel like there should be some individuality when it comes to money and marriage. I don't think you should lose your individual buying power. when you get married.
Yeah, that's true.
So you should be able to feel like, because you do work, because you do go out there and earn a living, that you feel some kind of responsibility and also possession over that.
But even the stay-at-home mom, because I can speak from the corporate angle. I've worked in corporate and I've been the stay-at-home mom. Even the mom who doesn't go out and earn a living should still feel like she can have equal buying power, just because she may not be working outside of the home. But if she is keeping your house clean and your kids fed and going to doctor's appointments and this and that and the other, and I know that's not what you were saying, but I was clarifying for those who may not know what you mean, that even just being in the marriage, I believe, gives you that ability. Because when I was a stay-at-home mom, I never felt like I had to ask you for permission to go get my nails done, or I never had to ask you for permission to say, hey, do you mind if I get this cup of coffee from Starbucks? You've never made me feel that way. So I've always felt, in times of unemployment and times of employment, maybe I was more just watching my spending based on maybe where we were at a particular point, but I was never from a standpoint of, oh man, if I get my nails done and I didn't tell Mark, he's gonna flip. You never did that.
That's why a budget is so important.
Yes,
because
that's
if
true.
you have conversations about money,
Yeah.
and you put together a budget, then you shouldn't feel like, if I go out here and buy this,
Yeah,
then I need to ask permission.
right.
Only if you are blowing the budget or you're doing something outside of what we've agreed upon,
Yes, exactly.
then yeah, you need to feel some type of way. But to have those kind of constraints in a marriage where you have to ask permission literally to buy every single thing,
Yeah.
it, number one, shows that one person has too much control.
Yes,
Number two, it shows that you have not communicated effectively about your money.
true. Yeah.
So you're always walking on eggshells and you're in the dark, like, can I even buy this?
Right.
Well, maybe you need to take a look at the account, and you need to take a look at the money and the budget, because you're clearly in the dark and you don't even know if you can spend $5.
Yeah, and there is such a thing known as financial abuse.
Right.
And some spouses abuse their spouse with financial abuse, with that too much control that you're talking about, where their spouse feels like, you shouldn't even buy so much as a donut
Right.
if you don't run it past me. And even in instances where the spouse may know how much money is in the account, if you're being financially abused, you'll know that you have thousands of dollars in your account, but you're afraid to buy a soda.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be buying soda because it's not healthy, but you're afraid to buy a coffee because your spouse is going to flip. Why? Because they feel bigger when they can say, I have not authorized that, or I have authorized that.
It's dangerous. And it's really not good. And the other thing is that you should know and have access to, both parties should know and have access to all accounts.
Agreed.
The more you know is the better off the marriage will be.
Yes.
Because the better participant you can be in when it comes to decisions. And so if you're out here in the dark and you're like, man, I think your spouse is like, hey, I think we should buy a house. And you're like, sure, but you have no clue
Right.
what's going on. You're not in a position to help make a good decision.
Right.
Because as far as you're concerned, yeah, we got the money. Because he
Right.
says we have the money. And it gets dangerous too, because it's like the question of, how did they get the money?
Right. Right.
Not only is money, does it bring up control issues, but money in the marriage brings up accountability issues.
Yeah.
And we need to hold each other accountable,
Yeah.
because money is a powerful and dangerous thing.
Oh, yeah.
So if I'm not transparent about all this money coming in and you don't see it, then I have no accountability.
Yeah.
But my wife needs to be able to see it and say, hey, how come, tens of thousands of dollars are just coming into the account? Where's that coming from?
Right.
I know you don't make that.
Right.
Where's that coming from?
Right.
And so it holds you accountable. This is the beauty of marriage and partnership because we're partners in everything.
Yeah.
And we need each other. That's why God said, hey, you can't be single. You need a wife because by yourself, you're going to make terrible decisions and you need somebody to hold you accountable on many levels. So I think, this thing could go many different directions.
You could probably spend the whole holiday season on money. We'll see what we do, but you probably could because that's how much you can delve into money and marriage.
Right. Oh, so when it comes to Christmas gifts and money, be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful because if you're not healthy, then you'll go out there and spend more money than you actually have.
And Christmas really is one day.
Yeah.
So don't live above your means for one day because after your spouse unwraps the gift and they're so impressed and they're so excited, if you're in thousands of dollars of debt over it, it didn't make any sense.
Right.
And that's where communication, I think, comes in again, where both parties have to be realistic and say, here's what we can spend on each other each year. And you agree to it. That's what you and I have been doing almost since the beginning of our marriages. We look at what we've saved throughout the year, where we are, and we say, okay, based on what we've saved or based on where we are, here's what we can spend on each other. Now that we have kids, we say, we come together and we decide this is what we're going to spend on the kids this year. And then this is what we're going to spend on each other.
Yeah.
Because at least on December 26th, no one is out here now wondering how we're going to pay off all the gifts we just bought. I can't, that level of stress is just...
Thank you. That's too much stress. And then, that's why when it comes to money and marriage, you just have to be healthy on the inside. Because a lot of wives will push their husbands and put pressure on them to go out there and get all of these outlandish gifts that the husband knows, right,
my ring.
We can't afford this.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how we will do things just to even impress our spouse.
Yeah. Like, honey, here's a Range Rover, and
if I'm insecure and I know I can't afford it, but I'm trying to impress my wife because I need that affirmation, I'm going to go out here and drop dough, drop all this money just so that she can feel like, hey, I'm more of a man. No, you're insecure.
Yeah.
That's the pressure of the holidays.
Yes.
That's the pressure of the holidays.
And you totally lose the whole reason. We always say Jesus is the reason for the season, but I feel like as Christians, we often still get caught up in forgetting that.
Right.
And for those that want to be technical, every year I see someone's like, Christ wasn't born in December. We know that. But you also don't know his exact birthday either.
No.
Because he didn't want us to get caught up in the day. But it is a time of year that we set aside to remember the birth of Christ and the real reason why he came. And so it sounds cliche, but I think if we can remember that, there's nothing wrong with giving gifts, but remember the real reason why we're celebrating. It is not for how much can I impress my spouse and then have them yell at me later because we can't pay this bill.
Yeah. Money can be a real big issue.
And the Bible says money answers all things.
It does.
But I think in order for you to get an answer, you have to ask a question. So you have to ask your money questions. What can we afford? What do we need to save for? What are we going to sacrifice? What are we not even going to think about in this season?
Right.
Money answers all things. So look at your money and ask it questions. It will give you the answer, like that show we used to watch, Can I Afford It?
Listen,
And they would call in to Susie Orman, and she would tell a lot of people, you cannot afford it.
Listen, you can't afford it. Money answers all things. When I was looking at that scripture a few weeks ago, the thought came to me, money answers all things, but is that the right answer for that thing?
Oh.
I can throw money at it, but does God want me to throw money at it?
Like you and your spouse, your communication is off, and you're like, well, I'll just get her a bag. But that doesn't fix the communication issue.
But is it the right answer?
Exactly.
So money can answer anything.
Yeah.
But is that the answer that God actually has for you in that situation. You can always throw money at it. You can always find money and it will answer it, but it may be actually the wrong answer. So I was just thinking about that and I just felt like, man, sometimes money is the wrong answer.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
We're
This was
gonna
another episode.
of Breakfast with Mark and Jen, and we're gonna get out of here until the next time.
All right. It's been a good one.
Yeah, for sure.
See ya.